So it wasn't a bad episode, but I don't know what I was honestly expecting because like with the premiere, I kind of felt a little about this episode. Just like not too much was at stake. Now to be fair, okay, I do think in the future we're going to see some stuff that's at stake, but I think part of the issue comes from we have kind of seen this before because the feel for this is kind of the same with the starts of the mergers in Cambodia and Millennials, where we end up having a very big dominant group that is getting rid of a couple of the underlings that are involved there. But then there ends up being a little bit of a shake up, and then someone ends up going who was prominent that didn't totally think that they were in danger. Now, to be fair, okay, um, it's not entirely the same because everyone who was in the first group didn't really cross into the second group, in my opinion, and not everyone voted for the way that they necessarily thought they would because, as Stephen pointed out in Ron Sessionino's video, everyone who voted for Haley and Michaela ended up voting the opposite of what it seemed like they were originally going to do. At least that's how it seemed to him. So, yeah, but just I don't know. I guess I'm not totally feeling it. Although I do feel like a lot of people's future games are at stake, and also the episode revealed to me that I think we're going to have to end up being stuck with getting only little bits of camera time from a few people, like Andrea. She hasn't really been featured at all this season, although she was a little bit in danger, but it's more to do with people around her, and then obviously Zeke is going to try and target her next time. And I find that a little disappointing because from Redemption Island to Caramel, she really improved herself, but given all the stuff that's been happening, she ends up being shafted, which is a little bit of a bummer. Then there's Sarah, who's kind of in the same spot that Andrea is. She hasn't really had that much to feature herself, and even though she's in the middle, she hasn't gotten the right amount of camera time to illustrate her own, independence. Like, the edit is trying to give her a little bit of a Ramses Janino and Kaz vibe, but I don't really believe that, to be honest. I honestly think Debbie's closer to that kind of a role, in my opinion, given her personality. Although she's demonstrated that she's a lot more willing to work with people and actually be smart about her outlandish moments to a degree. So, yeah, and then Suri, wish I could figure out why I started with her. I'll touch upon her more later, I hope, because I've been looking back at my videos for this season, and they've turned out to be a bit of a mess in terms of me forgetting who was on which tribe, and then I think me not touching upon a few other things that I wanted to say. Oh well, win some, lose some. Okay, so we get the merge bit, and then there's the interesting twist thrown onto the feast bit, and how did I feel about that? It's not entirely a bad thing because, they did something similar to like this in Cambodia, except back then, there was a sense of desperation. This time, it's just, let's just see what these people end up doing. And there were a bunch of them who were considering it, but they're like, I really don't think I can do it, even though as I thought about it, I'm like, come on, Ty, why aren't you raising your hand? This seems like the kind of thing you would do after I think about it for like 5 seconds, yeah. So in the end, I was pretty glad that he did it. Then Brad, well, once he explains his reasoning, it does make sense, but at the same time, I felt like, he ultimately could have not done it, even though he's right. It is similar to what Monica did in Blood vs. Water. Yeah. And there was like nothing else to discuss at that feast bit, and then the interactions don't going on at camp, I don't really remember too much, to be honest with you, yeah, so that immunity challenge, I was totally surprised that Andrea ended up taking it, because real early on, she was complaining about her muscles getting worn out, and like, I thought Ty would take it, but turns out he just floops right at the end, like it seems to happen a fair amount of time on these shows like Mike in Redemption Island with bouncing the balls. Yeah, not really a big deal, but just I began to root for him. There, yeah. So then it ends up being that Brad and arguably Sierra's pitches to get rid of Haley and Michaela are really coming into fruition. And like I had totally forgotten that Michaela was an original Mana tribe member. For some reason I thought Suri was there. I don't really know what my deal is with that, right? And they were pitching good reasons for both of them, minus the fact that they were betting that Haley had an idol. Like, I don't know, from my perspective, there was nothing different at all about her gameplay this time and last time, both in terms of how much she talks, minus those 2 moments at Tribal where she, kind of breaks form of it. Well, hold on, I haven't finished talking, and do you want to strip search me? Go ahead. That was weird, but yeah, like, they treated her the exact same way in the edit, and yeah, a bit of a waste if you ask me, even though, given how I've mentioned, the camera trick a bit, yeah, kind of annoys me there, but then we've also got the understandable bits about Michaela, which we've heard before. So it ultimately comes down to what does this, huge group want to end up doing, even though it's not really Nuku versus Mana. It just so happens, that on those 9 Nuku members, 4 Mana members, right? So I had thought about it, and I concluded that actually Haley was a little bit more likely to go just because of all the uneasiness. And then the bit of Tribal was she was actually fully revealing that she didn't have an idol. Somebody, though I can't remember who, stated ultimately that sealed it for her, and I kind of got that vibe, but you never really know, because these pros and cons can just be going all over the place, and it wasn't like Nicaragua where after Benry was voted out, I look at it, the situation, and I'm like, I don't know, I really, really think you should have done Fabio, and I was right. Oh, brother, but Haley ended up getting blindsided, and I'm like, okay, see ya. Right. And trying to throw Zeke under the bus a little bit, I didn't really buy that, to be honest. Didn't seem to be much reason for it, unlike what happened in the second half of this episode, where initially he's noticing the good, strong bond of control that Brad and Sierra end up having, but he notices that in the Alliance, a little bit, people do have the ability to put their own opinions out there, because Brad and Sierra did seem to be talking to a good amount of people. It was just the weird bits of shadows that Michaela and a couple of other people did. Yeah. And Suri interacting with Michaela, that was interesting, because this is the kind of thing that I think Suri ended up getting known for the merge in Exile Island, and a good amount of her performance in Micronesia. I still haven't seen Micronesia, but I did rewatch Exile Island a couple of years back, and that merge, sticks out in my mind, because she was pretty much responsible for 90% of the gameplay that happened that season, because I've stated repeatedly, barely any gameplay happened at all that season. It was just person versus person, really. That's really all it came down to. For almost all of it, yeah. So it'll be nice to see a little bit more of that from her, but the problem is I'm getting a little bit worried about her bits getting a little too clogged in the edit bits, because they're trying to cram, 12, 13 people into a 42-minute block-ish, and, it kind of showed that they weren't able to cram in as much of everyone's bits as they would have wanted, but it's not so much double-length episodes, it's just, they can't really figure out the storyline that they want to tell, it seems, from my perspective, but then again, who knows, maybe, after the premiere, I'll get a lot more understanding of what's going on in these people's minds, and get better at my feelings on the subjects, yeah. Okay. And then tied to how he's viewing Suri and Andrea, for whatever reason, he decides that they are actually probably better to target. And he's got a little bit of an interesting bit there because Brad and Sierra's control has been kind of like the general theme that's been going on this season. So, in a way, you can read them a lot better than Suri and Andrea because Andrea, not too many people would have predicted that she would have, had that big increase and game dynamic between her two seasons, and also, she got a little arrogant when she got power back in Caramon, which ultimately led to her alliance getting rid of her instead of the last target outside of the alliance. And then Suri, well, they know her reputation, she just hasn't gotten to Tribal Council until the merge, which I totally missed. Yeah, but I do understand his logic bit there. And part of me was glad about it, but at the same time, I'm like, we haven't been getting that much camera time from them, whereas Brad and Sierra we have been, so that's the odd bit about this season, because there are some people with, getting a good amount of camera time that really aren't in danger of going. Ozzy up to this point, Ty, I thought I had one other good example. Well, Brad, yeah. Debbie! Ha 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 ha. Right, anyway. What was I trying to say? Dang it, I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. We've been getting a good amount of camera time with people that haven't been in danger of going, but blending that in with the amount of people that really haven't been getting that much camera time, period, just makes me feel even more, So then at that immunity challenge, a lot of people have been saying that they predicted that Ozzy wasn't going to win. I actually didn't get that impression until he said, I'm going to break my record. Now, technically, when people say they're going to break a record, they mean do better, but the thing is, if you have a perfect record, really the only way to break a perfect record is to not succeed at it. And, that's not what he meant to say, but that's how I interpreted it. Because, I seriously thought for a good 10 seconds there that he meant, I'm starting to lose strength here. So it wasn't until that point I'm like, odd. And then Ty actually beat Ozzy, which was ironic because the time where I was less rooting for him, he wins, and then the time that I was rooting for him, he didn't. Yeah. So then at camp, and to my surprise, there's quite a lot of people trying to throw Ozzy's name around, and this is the second time that his name's been thrown around, and then we get all these interesting bits about Suri's group, trying to consider going after Brad and Sierra, but then as Zeke does this weird bit of revealing the secrets to, I think, Brad, while Andrea is standing right there, or Suri, and then they find out, and I'm like, yeah, that's not exactly the right thing to do, because, that's what Ty was trying to do back in the Asandra thing, so now that you're at the merge, and these Nuku people know that they've gotten a good hold on the Mono Tribe members, even though Troyzen's pulling a Spencer and Kelly Wigglesworth, where even though he really wasn't part of the Nuku members, and I come to think of it, he was never actually on the Nuku Tribe at any point during this whole game. He's treated as, a member of the club anyway, so someone's going to end up being thrown under the bus, and there's a lot of blame that's going to be thrown around here, that's for sure, right. So then we're going into Tribal, and I wasn't totally sure about how this vote, was going to go, but as I was watching it and then seeing that the Brad and Sierra group, because there's no alliance name, thank God, was voting for Ozzy, I thought in the back of my mind, okay, I'd say odds are that group is going to succeed, but it could not happen. But then, like, the moment Debbie jumped up with her extra vote bid, I was like, okay, I really think it probably will be Ozzy now, and sure enough, it was. But I don't know. I mean, like, it was a bit of a surprise, but it wasn't, like, huge, and I wish it could have been. Yeah. But I was pleased to see that Ozzy this time took his blind side very well, because I have seen his blind side clip for Micronesia, and he definitely didn't seem to take it that's good to then. Now I know what you're thinking. He did an outburst. Inwards, you could tell he was pissed. This time he was like, good game, guys. All right. Go ahead, Jeff. Yeah. So good on him for taking it pretty well, and congrats on beating Busta Rhymes' record by 11 days. So, yeah, you've got a lot to be proud of there. He lasted on average 32 days across 4 seasons. Not bad, bro. Not bad at all. And how do I feel about him? I don't feel like I've got him totally figured out, but I do feel like he finally got his personality to match the good level of game that he was going after, because I feel like he was involved in gameplay the same amount as he was in South Pacific, but given how he wasn't the leader of his tribe, he resonated a better feeling amongst all his fellow competitors, because when you're the leader of your tribe, like Ozzy was in South Pacific, or if you're the de facto leader of your tribe, Coach in South Pacific, Jeremy in San Juan del Sur, you get different feels. Right. Okay, so, touching up, okay, what did I want to say about Suri again? I mentioned the fact that she's getting the better camera time bit, and that she's trying to do a little bit more control of the game, but it's like, how can they fit that in? I think I touched upon that enough, I hope. Next time bit is just a bunch of chaos. Okay, top picks to win. Oh, brother, this is not going to be a good top pick. Let's try to stretch the imagination. Okay. Since we've got 11 people, free top picks, even though I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit here. So, first top pick, even though there's no real order to this, I'm going to pick Ty, because I think there's a huge chance he's going to get to the end, unless he does what he actually didn't do in Ko-Ron and shoot himself in the foot. Yeah, because I think if he can make it, even if he does the same game that he's going, he's going to have a fairly decent chance at taking this thing. Pick number 2, part of me thinks this is a bad pick. I'm going to put Suri there. Now I know what you're thinking, but isn't her behavior here indicating that it's actually not a bad idea, especially since no one's talking about her being voted out the way we expected? Well, that's actually not why I think it's bad. Those are reasons why it's good. Here's the real reason why I think it's bad. Before I saw like 1 second of this season, I had actually seen a spoiler on one of the Dalton Ross message boards saying that, hold on a second, it's not what you think. Saying that the final 3 there, and that Suri was one of them. Whoa, hold on a second. They also said Ozzy was one of the final 3 in that same spoiler. So if Ozzy's not there, doesn't that indicate to you that it's more likely that Suri won't be? Right, so that's why I think it's a bad pick, because if one part of the spoiler isn't true, what's to say that any part of the rest is? And I forget who the third person was, but I think it was one of the minor people, right? And then at pick number 3, I'm going to go with Brad, I think. Now, why am I not putting Sierra up there? Well, something tells me that if it's one of the 2 that ends up going, it's more likely to be Sierra. So then she's going to give the legacy advantage to Brad, kind of like how Jessica gave the advantage to a Ken. And Millennials, right. So those are my top picks, I think, but I'm not too picky if I get it wrong, because I've gotten the top picks wrong a fair amount of times. I just want to be satisfied with the eventual winner. Okay, long video for a little bit of a mess, but yeah, see ya.